A good day to all of you. Today, we are creating the 12th lesson in our microbit lesson series. So let's begin. First, click on the plus mark at the top of the screen and open a new tab. Now, type as www.makecode.com in the address bar and enter the MakeCode website. From here, click on Microbit. Now you're ready to start the project. Click on New Project and name the project as Project 12. Click on the Create button here. Now you have entered the project. Today we are going to create the Raindrop Catcher game using Microbit controllers. You little ones will also love this game a lot. Now we can create the code. First, let's see what happens in this game. Raindrops are created randomly in Microbit. These raindrops need to fall from above. We create these raindrops by turning on LEDs off and on. The catcher is on the bottom LED row. Button A and button B can move the catcher. It is necessary to move the catcher in this way and catch the raindrop. Okay, now you have a little idea about this game. Now we can create the code. First, let's create the necessary variables. Click on Variables and click Make a Variable button. The name of the first variable is given as Game Over. Now, let's see the OK button. For the next variable, click the Make a Variable button. Let's give the name of this variable as Drop Time and click the OK button. For the third variable, click Make a Variable button again. The name of the variable is given as Round Number. Now let's click the OK button. I click the Make a Variable button again. The name of this next variable is given as Final Round Number. Now let's click the OK button. For the next variable, click Make a Variable button. Let's give the name of this variable as Exposition Rain and click the OK button. For the sixth variable, click the Make a Variable button and give the name of this variable as Y Position Rain. Now let's click the OK button. Two more variables are required. For that, let's click the Make a Variable button again as before. The name of this variable is given as Exposition Catcher and the OK button is clicked. Let's click the Make a Variable button again for the eighth variable. The name of this variable is given as Y Position Catcher and the OK button is clicked. One more variable is required. Click the Make a Variable button as before. Let's give the name of this variable as Item and click OK button. Let's explain in which case each variable is needed when we create the code. Okay, now we have finished creating the variables. Next, assign the values to these variables. For this, I drag a setItem2 code block under variables into the onStart code block. Click on the arrow in front of the item and change the name of the variable to Game Over. For the value, I connect a false code block under logic. Drag a setItem2 code block in the variables again. Click on the arrow in front of the item and change the name of the variable to Drop Time. The value here is given as 2000. Once again, a setItem2 code block in variables is dragged here. Click on the arrow in front of the item and change the variable name to Round Number. The value here is given as 1. In the same way, for the next variable, a setItem2 code block under variables is dragged here. Let's change the name of this variable from here to the Final Round Number. Here the value is given as 4. Okay, now drag a setItem2 code block in the variables here. Click on the arrow in front of the item and change the name of the variable to the Exposition Rain. Here the value is given as 2. Once again, a setItem2 code block in variables is dragged here. Click on the arrow in front of the item and change the name of the variable to Y Position Rain. The value here is given as 0. In the same way, for the next variable, a setItem2 code block under variables is dragged here. Let's change the name of the variable from here to Exposition Catcher. Here, the value is given as 0. Once again, drag a setItem2 code block under variables here and change the variable to the Y Position Catcher. Let's give the value as 4 here. Okay. Now we have finished assigning the values to the variables at the start of the game. You can see that here we have assigned values for two variables called X position rain and Y position rain. With that, we can give an X position and a Y position for the raindrops. Also, X position catcher and Y position catcher variables can provide X and Y position for the catchers. Okay, now in this way, the catcher to be created needs to move left and right by buttons A and B. Let's create the code for this. First, let's consider the case of pressing button A. I drag an on button A pressed code block under input here. When button A is pressed, the LED at the place where the catcher is now needs to turn off. For this, let's drag an unplugged code block in the LED into the when A pressed code block. For this, let's drag an unplugged code block in the LED to the on button A pressed code block. For X, drag an X position catcher code block under variables. Let's drag a Y position catcher code block under the variables for Y. Next, if the X position of the catcher is greater than 0, that means if the catcher is not at the left end, then it needs to move to the left. For that, I drag an if code block under logic here. For the condition, connect a code block with the equal sign under logic. Click on the arrow in front of the equal sign and select the larger than sign. Let's connect the X position catcher code block under variables to the left side of this larger than sign and give 0 to the right side. Since the catcher needs to move to the left, the X position needs to decrease by 1. For that, let's drag a change item by 1 code block under variables into the if code block. Click on the arrow in front of the item and select the X position catcher. Let's change the value to -1. Now the LED needs to light up again. For this, out of the if code block, drag a plot XY code block in the LEDs. For X, drag the X position catcher code block under variables, and let's drag a Y position catcher code block under variables for Y. Now we need to create a code block for pressing the B button in the same way. When button B is pressed, if the catcher does not move to the right, that means if the X position of the catcher is less than 4, the catcher should move to the right. Now let's prepare the code for this. Rather than creating a new code, we can easily duplicate the code block created for the button A and change the required locations. In this way, I right-click on the on button A pressed code block and give duplicate. Let's change the required parts of the duplicated code block. Here on the arrow in front of button A and select button B. Here for the condition of the if code block, let's select the smaller than sign from here. 4 is given to the right side of the smaller than sign. At the same time, since the catcher needs to move to the right, the X position needs to increase by 1. Now, let's replace the -1 with positive here. Okay now. Next is to create the raindrops that fall randomly from the top to bottom and create the code for winning or losing the game. First, let's create the raindrops that move from top to bottom. For that, I drag a while do code block under loops into this forever code block. This loop needs to run until the value of the game over variable is false. For that, let's drag a not code block under logic here. Again, a game over code block in variables is connected to the not code block. Okay, now because we want to light the LEDs at the place where the catcher is, let's drag a plot code block under the LED into the while do code block. For X, let's drag the X position catcher code block under variables. Let's drag a Y position catcher code block under variables for Y. In this way, it is also necessary to light the LEDs at the location of the raindrops. For that, drag a plot code block from the LEDs back here. For X, drag the X position rain code block under variables. For Y, let's drag a Y position rain code block under variables. The raindrops has not stopped at the same place. It needs to fall down. Therefore, the lit LED needs to be turned off. Let's drag a post code block under basic here. Connect the drop time code block under variables for time. Now, after this time, the raindrop will move down. For this, let's drag an unplot code block under LED below the post code block. For X, drag an X position rain code block under variables. For Y, let's drag the y position rain code block under variable. Since the raindrop is moving down, now the y position of the raindrops need to increase by 1. For this, drag a change item by 1 code block in variables here and change the variable as y position. For this, drag a change item by 1 code block in variables here and change the variable as y position rain. Okay, now the raindrop is moving from top to bottom. Meanwhile, we can move the catcher by button A and button B and catch the raindrops. While catching the raindrops, the x position of the raindrop should be equal to the x position of the catcher and the y position of the raindrop should be equal to the y position of the catcher. When the raindrops are caught in this way, the value of the round variable increases by 1 and the next raindrop is created. Let's prepare the code for this now. I drag an if-else code block under logic here. For the condition, let's drag a code block with the and sign in logic. A code block with the equal sign under logic is dragged to the left side of the and sign. Now, from this equal sign, let's connect an x position rain code block under variables to the left side and an x position catcher code block under variables to the right side. Drag a code block with the equal sign under logic to the right side of the and sign again. Now let's connect a y position rain code block under variables to the left side of this equal sign and a y position catcher code block under variables to the right side. Okay, now as the game progresses, after catching the raindrops in this way, the time it takes for the raindrops to fall down needs to decrease. For that, let's reduce the drop time to half. I drag a set item 2 code block under variables into this if code block. Click on the arrow in front of the item and select drop time. Now link the square root 0 code block under maths here. Click on the arrow in front of square root and select integer divide. From here, the drop time code block in the variables is connected to the left side and 2 is given to the right side. Again, drag the change item by 1 code block under variables here and change the variable to round number. A random x position should also be given to create the next raindrop. For that, I drag the set item 2 code block in variables again. Instead of item, let's select x position rain. Drag the pick random code block under math and attach it as the value here. Give 0 and 4 for the value. Since the raindrops start from the top row of the LEDs, the y value should be 0. I drag the set item 2 code block in the variables back here. Click on the arrow in front of the item and select y position rain. 0 is given for the value. Next, drag a post code block under basics here and change the time to 1000 milliseconds. Next is to create the code for when the game ends. In this game, if you catch more than 4 raindrops or if you miss even 1 raindrop without catching it, the game ends. I drag an if code block under logic below this post code block. Drag a code block with the equal sign under logic for the condition and select the larger than sign instead of the equal sign. Drag a round number code block under variables to the left side of the larger than sign. Drag a final round number code block in variables to the right side. Now look at this condition. You may remember that at the beginning we created a variable called final round number. The value of this variable was assigned as 4. Now, when the raindrops are caught, the value of the round number variable increases by 1. Here, we checked whether the value of the round number variable is greater than the value of the final round number variable. If the condition is true, more than 4 raindrops have been caught. Because of this, the game can be finished. Into this if code block, drag a set item 2 code block in variables again. Click on the arrow in front of the item and select Game Over. For value, connect a true code block under logic. Okay, next is the other time when the game ends. If you miss even 1 drop without catching it, the game ends. I dragged an if code block under logic into this else section of this first if code block. Drag a code block with the equal sign under logic for the condition and select the larger than sign instead of the equal sign. Drag a y position rain code block under variables to the left side of the larger than sign. Number 4 is given to the right side. Now look at this condition. If the raindrops fall without catching it, the y position of the raindrop will be equal to 4. At this point, the game ends. Into this if code block, drag a set item to code block under variables again. Click on the arrow in front of item and select game over. For value, connect a true code block under logic. As soon as the game ends, if you win, display a happy emoji, and if you lose, a sad emoji. I drag an if-else code block out of this while loop back under logic. Drag this if-else code block into this forever code block. For the condition here, let's connect an AND code block under logic. Drag a game over code block in the variables to the left side of the AND sign. To the right side of the AND sign, let's connect a code block with the equal sign under logic. Click on the arrow in front of the equal sign and select the larger than sign. From this larger than sign, let's drag a round number code block under variables to the left and a final round number code block under variables to the right. Now look at this condition. If the game is over, the round number is greater than the final round number, the game is over when more than 4 raindrops are caught. Therefore, the game is won. Let's drag a show icon code block under basics here. Select happy for the emoji icon. Let's drag a show icon code block under basics again into this else section and select a sad emoji for the icon. Now let's click the play button. In this way, raindrops fall down. By button A and button B, you can move this catcher and catch raindrops. Also, you can run this project through a microbit device and play this game. If you made it in this way, you little ones are very talented. If you want to share this project, click the second share button on the upper right side of the interface and click on the publish to share button like this. Now, you can copy and share this link. To see the creation you made, WhatsApp it to the number note 7681252244. Tell your friends also about the creation you made. Send it to me and send it to your friends as well to see this app. You too can join the DP Coding School Telegram group and try to be the DP Code Jam Best of the Week once every week. For that, keep in touch with us. And one more thing, join our DP Coding Club, and now you can start a DP Coding Club in your school too. For that, we are ready to provide all the guidance. If you want to start a DP Coding Club in any school where computer labs are available, make a request through the principal to the email address info@dpcc.lk. See you with another interesting lesson through DP Coding School. Have a nice day.